so happy we alive.
Nationally syndicated television and radio program that airs on Pacifica, Dish, DirecTV. Amy is the foremost voice for media reform and independent media in the United States. Welcome.
It's great to be with you.
Thank you. It's good you're here.
Oh, I'm glad to be in Louisville, my first time.
Cool. Welcome back. Next time. We hope to have you. What we're going to be doing today is talking in particular about media reform and the local situation here and examples from around the country and the world. I'm wondering if you could tell me what you see as the most hopeful media reform strategies that folks at the local level can take on and how that relates to the national media reform movement.
Well, for one thing, I think it's very important that people in Louisville know that public access is here. You know, you don't have advertising budgets, it's word of mouth. And if we don't use these public spaces, we will lose them. If people don't know about it, if it doesn't bring in all different people from different sectors of society, then it's not worth having. But it is. People fought hard for it for a reason. I come from Pacifica Radio, which is the only independent radio network broadcasting in the United States, commercial-free, just supported by listeners. Millions of people built up this national network. And in the same way, media activists carved out this public space in each community. A cable company comes into town, the companies do, they vie for the contract. The city doesn't want more than one cable company digging up the roads, and so one gets the monopoly. Then, because media activists fought hard, they fought to ensure that in exchange for the monopoly, the cable company gives a couple of public interest channels. But when they come to renegotiate, they like to take back those channels. And unless there is a constituency out there, both people who are making the media on this side of the camera and people who are watching it on the other side of the camera, who deeply believe that we need to have a forum for these local discussions, then we're going to lose these channels. And Louisville Public Access is connected to New York Public Access, is connected to Access Tucson and Access San Francisco, all going through the same struggles. TV is essential. It is the way most people get their information. And we've got to get it to people, not through a corporate lens. That's very dangerous. We see the effect of our image projected to the rest of the world through a corporate lens. It's very frightening. We need a media that is brought to us not by corporations that profit from war. That's brought to us not by corporations who, as one activist said, not by corporations that have nothing to tell and everything to sell, that are raising our children today. But they are for an honest discussion, discourse, debate about the most important issues of the day. Life and death, war and peace. It's absolutely critical. The media have become the most powerful institutions on earth because they're the way we come to learn about the world. Unless we know each other personally, it's the way we learn about everyone and the way they learn about us.
If we have voices at the local level that are networked globally, as you've been able to do with Democracy Now!, for those alternative voices to be heard, there's public access, there's the internet, there's low-power radio in the United States.
Which is great, yeah.
Wi-Fi. How do you see these pieces coming
together? You've got
together?
Brickhouse that's just about to come online, right? Low-power FM. Very important movement that came out of, well, in the last phase of things, it came out of a very serious clampdown on independent voices. Michael Powell was chair of the Federal Communications Commission. Yes, he's the son of Colin Powell, who leads the war on Iraq. His son leads the war on diversity of voices at home and tries to launch the largest media consolidation this country has ever seen. And people responded across the political spectrum. They were angry. They understood that when you allow a radio, TV, newspaper in town all to be owned by the same media mogul, that is a threat to democracy. That is a threat to us being able to communicate with each other and learn about the world. Media are essential for a functioning democracy. We have to be informed. And so I think it's absolutely important that we have a forum where you don't just see the same old tired faces and voices, these people we see on every network who know so little about so much, explaining the world to us. In every community, you have your experts. Ordinary people are the experts in their own lives and are the target of, feel the effects of policy and can talk about it in their own lives, whether we're talking about Medicare or Social Security, whether we're talking about war, the National Guard, the Reserve, the Army going. Who is sending them? They can't have these debates at military bases. They rely on us and civilian society to have these discussions. And the place to have them is in the media, because it is most effective. You have a table, everyone sits around, you've got the table where we sit, and then everyone outside of the range of the lens who is really participating in it as well. Media can be a democratizing force, or it can concentrate power and only be a megaphone for those in power. That's not media serving a democratic society.
There's a distinction, Paulo Freire, famous quote, that education is for liberation or oppression.
Paulo Freire, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, such an important book. People educating themselves, consciousness raising.
One of the things that's happening right now, of course, is we're essentially living in propaganda soup. Certainly with the video news release scandal of the last several years, but particularly in the last few months since the New York Times reported on government-produced propaganda that was masquerading as news, as fake news. I'm wondering if you have any perspective on that issue in particular, and how people can take control from the existing corporate systems. By take control, I mean ensure that the news that is being broadcast actually is news.
Yeah, well, I mean, the VNR scandal is a very important one. Video news releases. The U.S. government taking your taxpayer dollars, spending $250 million on 20 federal agencies making what look like news broadcasts, news pieces that are outright propaganda. That's actually against the law in this country. For example, we're not supposed to be able to hear Voice of America in the United States. That's a government news organization that's sent to the rest of the world. Now you have more than a dozen government agencies that are putting out these video news releases. Now, of course, it takes two to tango. And at the other end, you have local newsrooms that are taking these video news releases, these so-called news pieces, and they are broadcasting them as if they are real news. You don't even know that the so-called reporters, they're using fake names often. They're often just PR specialists, and they're pretending to be reporters. Or you have the situation where your local newsroom takes the piece, takes out the anchor of the piece, puts in their own anchor, which gives it even more legitimacy, takes the clips from the government, the video bites, and the result is the population is being propagandized. What I think is an even bigger scandal is simply that it has taken so long for this to come public, and that is because those pieces don't look that different from the pieces that they are next to in the local or national newscasts. That's the biggest problem. We're supposed to be separate from government. We're supposed to be holding those in power accountable. That's our job. It's not a comfortable position. We're journalists. There's a reason why our job, journalism, is the only one explicitly protected by the U.S. Constitution, because we're supposed to be the check and balance on government. We're an essential part of the functioning of this country. It's not comfortable. We're not supposed to be in bed with power, which is why there's a problem with the embedding process. As Walter Cronkite said, what an unfortunate choice of words. It's not just the choice of words. It's the actual practice of the reporters being embedded in the front lines of troops. Then what kind of perspective you're going to get? That's one perspective, fine. But what about embedded in Iraqi communities, embedded in hospitals, embedded in the peace movement around the world to understand the full effect of war? That you're not going to get from a video news release. And the idea that